Okay, so, I gotta say, diving into this whole sole and heel operator thing, it's way more interesting than I thought it'd be.
Right.
Like, I get the basic idea they attach the bottoms of shoes, but there's gotta be more to it, right?
Oh, there definitely is. Way more to it. It's one of those jobs, we see a shoe, we wear shoes, but we never really think about what goes into it.
Exactly. And this guide we've got, it mentions all this stuff about different construction types, different materials. Like, it's not just slacking some rubber on there.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, that's part of it, but there's a real art to it, especially when you're talking about like high quality shoes. It's about craftsmanship. Take cemented construction, for instance. That's using adhesives to bond the sole to the upper. Super common, really efficient, cost effective. You see it in a lot of everyday shoes.
Makes sense. So, like, my sneakers are probably cemented then.
Most likely. Now, compare that to something like a Goodyear welt.
Okay, yeah, I saw that in the guide.
That's where things get interesting. It's a stitched construction method known for being incredibly durable, water resistant. You'll find that on, high-end shoes, boots, anything you need to last.
So Goodyear welt, that's like the workhorse construction, while cemented is more for like everyday wear. Is that the
Right.
kind of thing a sole and heel operator would specialize in? Like, I'm guessing you wouldn't do both.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. You can have someone who's known for their Goodyear welting or someone who's a master of a particular type of cemented construction. And then within those, you've got the materials, leather soles, rubber soles, synthetics. Each one brings its own challenges and properties to the table.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking like a whole science to this.
Pretty much, you got to remember, a shoe's got to fit well, it's got to be
Yeah.
comfortable, it's got to last. It's not just about looking good.
Yeah, that's true. And speaking of fit, the guide mentions something called lasting, which I'm guessing is about shaping the shoe around a foot form.
You got it. The last is literally a foot-shaped mold. Traditionally, they were made of wood, but now you see a lot of plastic ones, and the shoe gets built around that.
Okay, so there are different lasts for different shoes. Like I'm picturing a high heel versus a hiking boot.
You're exactly right. Different styles, different sizes, even different manufacturers might use their own unique lasts. And even the material of the last makes a difference. Wood's more breathable, which is why it's preferred for like high-end shoes,
Oh.
but plastic's cheaper, more consistent, so it's often used for mass production.
Man, who knew there were so many factors? I'm starting to see why someone might really get into this whole field. So let's say I'm hearing all this and I'm thinking, hey, maybe I want to try this whole sole and heel operator thing. Is there like a school for that?
Not really. That's the thing about this kind of work. It's all about hands-on experience. Apprenticeships are where it's at. You learn from people who've been doing it for years, sometimes decades.
Okay, so it's more of a like master apprentice kind of deal. So where do you even find these apprenticeships? How do you get your foot in the door, so to speak?
Networking's key. Reaching out to footwear manufacturers, repair shops, even custom shoemakers in your area. You never know who might be looking for an apprentice or even have an entry-level position open. Sometimes it's about being in the right place at the right time.
Right, right. So you got to hustle a bit, put yourself out there. Okay, so you've landed an apprenticeship, you're in. What happens next? What's the path look like from there?
Well, generally speaking, you'd start with the basics. Assisting experienced operators, learning how to use the machinery, that sort of thing, building that foundation.
Right, so no jumping straight into crafting a Goodyear welt on day one.
Not quite. It's all about, proving you're dedicated, learning the ropes, and then as you gain experience, as you get more confident, you'd progress to a junior sole and heel operator role.
Okay, so more responsibility, I'm guessing.
You got it. At that point, you'd be doing more independently. You're attaching soles and heels, troubleshooting minor issues, probably even collaborating with more senior operators on those really intricate tasks.
So a chance to really figure out what you enjoy, what you're good at, right? Like maybe you discover you've got a knack for working with super delicate materials, or you love the challenge of like a really sturdy boot.
Exactly. And if you keep excelling, well, that's when things get really interesting. That's usually when you'd move into a senior sole and heel operator position.
Okay, so now we're talking expert level, right? What does that look like day to day?
Yeah, you could say that you're not just, churning out shoes at that point. You're kind of like a mentor, too. You'd be training and overseeing those junior operators we talked about,
Yeah.
making sure the quality's up to snuff, working with the production supervisors, keeping the whole operation running smoothly.
So it's like you've got the leadership aspect, but you're also really getting to perfect your craft. Passing on that knowledge, is there like another level after that? Is there like a sole and heel operator master title I can add to my LinkedIn profile or something?
Well, I don't know about a master title, but the guy does mention a lead sole and heel operator position. That seems to be the peak.
Okay, yeah, lead sole and heel operator. I kind of like the sound of that. What does that involve?
Think of it as more of a management position within, the
Yeah.
workshop or the factory. You're leading a whole team of operators, delegating tasks, making sure those deadlines are met, and, of course, keeping those quality standards high. Basically, you're responsible for making sure everything runs smoothly, like a well-oiled machine. A shoemaking machine, of course.
And I'm guessing you still get to, get your hands dirty from time to time. I can't imagine a lead sole and heel operator not jumping in on a particularly interesting project every now and then.
Oh, I'm sure they do. I bet that's part of the appeal. It's clear that this isn't just a job, it's a real passion.
Mm.
Speaking of which, the guide also mentioned something I found pretty intriguing. They talk about the importance of building a portfolio.
Oh, yeah, right, right. I remember that. It seems a little, I don't know, counterintuitive. Like, if you've got the experience in the workshop, shouldn't that be enough?
It probably used to be,
Yeah.
but nowadays, a portfolio is a way to really show off what you can do. You can highlight the different construction types you've mastered, the materials you're comfortable working with, and, with high-quality photos, you can really show off your attention to detail.
So it's like a visual resume, but for shoes? Man, I bet some of those portfolios are impressive. A beautifully crafted Goodyear welt, that's got to speak for itself.
You got it. And these days, it's easier than ever to share your work online. Potential employers, they can see exactly what you bring to the table. Plus, if you want to specialize in a particular type of footwear or a certain construction technique, it's a great way to stand out.
This is so cool. And you know what? It's making me realize that this is about so much more than just, attaching soles and heels. This is like creating wearable art.
That's one way to put it. And speaking of art, remember those terms we mentioned before, roughing and dusting?
Yeah, yeah, I was wondering about those. They sounded kind of like something you do in a bakery.
That's a great analogy. See, roughing is all about preparing the surfaces of the sole and the upper for bonding. It's about creating the right texture so that adhesive really grabs hold. And dusting, that's all part of that prep, making sure there's no debris that could weaken the bond.
So, like, it's not just about putting the pieces together, it's about prepping those pieces properly, making sure they'll bond correctly. Like, each shoe has a recipe. You gotta know which recipe works best.
Okay. Every single step, from picking the right last to making sure those surfaces are prepped just right, it all contributes to the final product. It really highlights how much skill and care goes into this kind of work.
This whole conversation makes me want to see it all firsthand. Actually, speaking of skills, we've talked a lot about the hands-on stuff, but what about the other qualities? What does it take to be a good sole and heel operator, beyond just, knowing how to use the tools?
That's a really good question, and it gets to the heart of why this kind of work is so special. Because there is a real human element to it. Obviously, you need dexterity, hand-eye coordination, but there's more to it than that.
Like what?
Well, imagine yourself standing at a workbench for hours, carefully stitching a Goodyear welt, or making sure that sole is perfectly aligned before you cement it. That takes incredible patience, focus, attention to detail.
It's not a job for someone who rushes through things, that's for sure. You've really got to find that sense of satisfaction in that precision, in that meticulous approach. It's almost meditative in a way.
You said it. And remember, you're not always working alone. It's a fast-paced environment. There's collaboration. So being a good communicator, being able to take direction, and being open to learning from those more experienced operators, that's all crucial.
It really is like a team effort, isn't it? Everyone working together to make something special. I bet there's a real sense of camaraderie in those workshops, but it's got to be physically demanding too, right?
You bet. You're on your feet most of the day. You're dealing with heavy machinery, sometimes heavy materials. So stamina is important, strength, good hand-eye coordination, those are all key.
Okay, so we've got the physical side, the focus, the teamwork. What else? What's that X factor that separates a good sole and heel operator from a truly great one?
Well, aside from, all the technical stuff, I think it boils down to something we already touched upon. Passion.
Mm.
A genuine love for the craft, that desire to take raw materials and shape them into something functional, something beautiful, something that will last. That's what sets the best apart.
It's that spark, that desire to create something with your hands, something you're proud of. It's not just a job, it's a craft, like you said. And speaking of finding your niche, what about RoleCatcher? We talked about how it can help people get into this field, but how does it actually work? How is it different from just like applying for jobs online? So it's not just sending your resume out to a million places and hoping for the best. It's more like targeted.
Way more targeted. It's like, okay, imagine this roll catcher looks at everything you've done. The types of construction you're good at, the materials you've worked with, even the software you know.
Okay, so it's getting specific, really figuring out what you bring to the table, and then it uses that to, like, match you with potential employers.
Exactly. Like a matchmaking service, but for your career.
Right.
And here's the cool part. Employers, they can use RoleCatcher too to find people with the exact skills they need.
Hmm.
So let's say a workshop needs someone who's amazing at Goodyear welting, especially on hiking boots.
Yeah.
They plug that in, and boom, RoleCatcher connects them with potential hires who fit that description.
No more sorting through tons of applications that aren't even relevant. That's got to be huge, especially in a field like this, where having those hands-on skills is so important.
100%. No more guessing games. It's all about making those connections, putting skilled people in the right positions. And, if you combine that with a killer portfolio like we were talking about, that's when you really stand out.
It's like you're not just applying for any job, you're showcasing what you're passionate about, and not just to anyone, but to people who actually get it. It feels, I don't know, more empowering for everyone involved.
You nailed it. And, as we wrap things up here, I'm struck by how, I don't know, poetic this career path is.
Poetic. We're talking about attaching soles and heels, right?
I know, right? But think about it. It's this blend of like tradition and innovation. You're using your hands, you're carrying on a craft that's been around forever, but you're also embracing new technology, new materials, always pushing the boundaries.
So you're part of this long line of craftspeople, but you're also like writing your own chapter in shoemaking history.
That's a great way to put it. And, with tools like RoleCatcher, it's easier than ever for people to be a part of that story.
Absolutely. This has been a real eye-opener. I came into this thinking about soles and heels, and now I'm seeing this whole world of skilled trades, each one with its own history, its own challenges, its own rewards. It's pretty amazing.
It is. Maybe someone listening to this will hear that and feel inspired. Maybe they'll discover a passion for working with their hands,
Yeah.
for learning a new craft, for creating something with real meaning.
That's the best part, right? You never know where a deep dive like this will lead. So to everyone listening, if you're feeling that spark, if you're curious about these skilled trades, just remember, it's never too late to learn something new, to try something different. You might just surprise yourself.
Couldn't agree more. With the right tools and a little bit of that go-getter spirit, you can achieve anything. So keep exploring, keep that curiosity alive, and until next time, happy deep diving.